this video, you will learn how to solve quadratic equations by the factor method. To apply the factor method, first of all, you must understand this fact. Suppose we have two numbers and we know that their product is 0. Then that means one of these should be 0, otherwise the product won't be 0. That means I can conclude that I should know that m is equal to 0 or n is equal to 0. One of them has to be 0 so that the product is 0. This is the basic concept when we need to apply the factor method. But please pay attention that if this number is not 0, this conclusion won't work. For example, if I know that mn is equal to 1. Here there are lots of possibilities. M can be 1 and n can be 1. But I can also say that m is equal to half and n is equal to 2. I can say that m is equal to 1/3 and n is equal to 3. There are lots of possibilities, but only in this case of having a 0 here, we only have one possibility. That is either m is 0 or n is 0. One of them has to be 0. Now let's take a look at this example. Here, in order to solve this quadratic equation, first of all, we can see that there is a 0 here. That means if I can factorize this into x times x minus 3 equals 0, then I can apply the concept here to conclude that one of these factors has to be 0. So I can conclude that x is 0 or x minus 3 is 0. Therefore, I should know that x is equal to 0 or x is equal to 3, because when x minus 3 is 0, x is equal to 3. So this is my final result. The solutions are 0 and 3. There are two solutions in these quadratic equations. We also call this the roots of this equation. Let's take a look at another example. In this example, again, we have a 0 here. That means if I can factorize this, then I can apply this concept to conclude that one of the factors must be 0. And this can actually be factorized by the factor method, because I know that x times 7, x plus 7 times x minus 2 should be, okay, x times 7 is 7x, and then x times minus 2 is minus 2x, and it is equal to 5x, which is the same as this term. That means this one can be factorized as x plus 7 times x minus 2 equals 0. And now this one is factorized, and their product is 0. So I can conclude that one of this has to be 0. Therefore, x plus 7 is 0, or x minus 2 is 0. So I can conclude that x is equal to minus 7 or x is equal to 2. Again, there are two solutions in this quadratic equation. Now let's take a look at this example. In this equation, there is no 0 on the right hand side. That means we have to put everything on the left hand side so that the right hand side is equal to 0. In mathematics, we call this form the general form of quadratic equations. That means in this question, we first of all need to convert this in the general form, and then we have a 0 here. And now we can factorize this. Luckily, this expression can be factorized, and this is equal to x minus 3 squared. This is factorized by the perfect square identity. That means we know that x minus 3 times x minus 3 is equal to 0. And now these two factors are equal, both are x minus 3, and therefore we just need to conclude that x minus 3 is equal to 0. There is no second factor to be considered. So we should know that x is equal to 3. And therefore, in this case, there is only one solution or one root in this quadratic equation. And in mathematics, we call this the repeated root of quadratic equations. Finally, let's take a look at this example. Again, in this example, first of all, we need to rewrite this in the general form. That means we want the right hand side to be 0. And now we just need to think of a way to factorize this. This can actually be factorized by the difference of two squares identity, like this. 40 plus 7, 40 minus 7 equals 0. And now I can conclude that one of these factors is 0. Therefore, 4t plus 7 is equal to 0, or 4t minus 7 is equal to 0. Therefore, I can conclude that t is equal to minus 7 over 4, or t is equal to 7 over 4. So there are two solutions in this equation. One is minus 7 over 4, the other one is 7 over 4. Indeed, besides the factor method, there is another way to do this. We can first of all make this t squared the subject of this equation. And now I can just take square root on both sides, so that t is equal to the square root of 49 over 16. But please pay attention here. This square root sign only means the positive square root. Therefore, if you would like to find out the value for t, we should know that there are two square roots, one positive and one negative, because a negative number times a negative number is a positive number. So when I know that t squared is a positive number, t itself can be a negative number. And therefore, there should be two roots to be considered, one positive and one negative, and this root sign only refers to the positive square root. And that's why I have to add a symbol like this, plus or minus. That means t can be positive of this number or the negative of this number. And therefore, I can conclude that t is equal to plus or minus 7 over 4. That means t can be positive 7 over 4 or minus 7 over 4. This is another way to represent the solutions for this quadratic equation.